Is it a nice summer day out and you have nothing else to do but to restore the woodwork in your house? See, this is nice woodwork here. It's got a nice finish. But perhaps you have a spot like this that is starting to wear. And I don't know if you can see that with the color on your screen, but it's dry to the touch. It doesn't slide and have a slippery feel like this does. This should feel like plastic, but if it doesn't, it'll feel more like raw wood. If you're not sure what that feels like, go find a log. Or just you feel any old furniture somewhere that really loses that luster. Well, you can simply do something to this to restore this nice sheen back. And if it starts to fade, like you see in here on windowsills, are especially culprit. Look at how faded and even stained that is. I don't think you're going to get rid of stain if it's deep. In fact, if the stains are deep, that means you should have done this project long ago, like I should have here. But a plant sits there and dirt spills over and it soaks into the wood. The idea of the polyurethane coating that is on a nice, see that sheen, that shine on there? The purpose of that is to, when you feel that it feels slippery, is to keep everything out. Water and beet juice and other stuff that, like beet juice. You know that red stuff, those red beets, or they're purple? That's probably one of the worst stains. Coffee stains. This good poly coating, and it's a polyurethane, is meant to keep everything out of the woodwork. Everything. If you let it go too long, it's going to start to look like this. This means you have neglected your house and you have deferred maintenance. It'll decrease the resale value. Because if you want to restore this to look perfect, you're going to have to tear out actually all the window trim. Unless you want to sand it way down, but you don't know how deep the stain went. Lesson learned, don't let it get so deep. So you're going to catch it at this stage, right? Nod yes, I'm going to catch it at this stage because I don't want stains like Tom has in his windows. Alright, alright. So when it starts to feel dry and not slippery like the sheeny part, then it's time to give it a little sanding just to get this roughness off and any grit and dirt and whatever. Give it just a light sand. I'm using 220 grit. You could start out with something, and do you know about grit? The larger the number, the finer it is. Kind of like me. I'm a large number in age, but I'm fine, right? Nod yes. Okay. Well, anyway, like 120 grit would be coarse, and like the course you're taking from me. No, that's COARSE. I'm talking, this is coarse. So you start with 120. Now I've confused you. Start with 120 and then go down to up to 220 or something fine, nice and fine. It shouldn't even feel like it would sand your finger that much. You're gonna work this coating off, and once you do this, you're committing to the job because it's gonna have, look at how it instantly has that dusty look to it. You're taking icky stuff off. Yes, that's a technical term. You're taking off just the outer coating and the polyurethane. Careful on corners. Don't sand corners because they'll become rounded. So when you get down there, be very careful. You only have to lightly sand it, just enough to get that initial coat off. Now if you want to see what it should look like, you can take a light amount of water and just wipe that dirt off. Now you can see that there's, right there, I don't know how focused that is, but it's looking lighter than its surroundings. So you're going to take a damp cloth and give it a wipe down. Not wet. You don't want the wood to get all soaked. Give it a wipe down, get that dust off. Now you can see that you're going to have to give this a little stain. And after the stain is on and dries, which is pretty fast, follow the instructions on the label. Once that's done, then you can put a polyurethane coat on. And I suggest the whole panel for the polyurethane, otherwise it will look not uniform. And then people that visit you will go, "What's the matter with you? You didn't do it right." Well, hopefully they don't. But if you're going to make a video, then it would look uneven or terrible like this does. But this is back in the day when I didn't know better. Now I know better. Over here I've stained this panel. Coffee pot used to sit under here and put a ton of steam up, and this actually got all warped. So I sanded it down, careful around the bottom edge so you don't cause a rounding, unless you want it rounded, but then you'd have to do them all. And then I put stain on here. So this is what it looks like with stain. You can see that other than the sheen, it's all pretty much uniform, and it looks like it should when it is done correctly. The sun also shines on this, and that's another reason for a good polyurethane coating on all of your windowsills. Now we're gonna go get I'm looking at thunderstorms. We're gonna go get, well, first you're gonna get the stain. And by the way, yes, I'm setting stain directly on the countertop, and you won't do this, right? You'll put newspaper down and plastic bags maybe. The reason I'm doing it is this countertop is getting torn out tomorrow and replaced. So you'll see a new bathroom. Maybe I'll show it to you. Maybe I won't. Depends on if I produce this video by the time they get it done. So you're going to get a wood finish, and it will match, right? It'll match what you get. You should take a sample to the store with you and have the professional at the store or the clerk that go to a store that knows what they're talking about and get the color that does match. If you build your house, find out what color they have. Get maybe an empty can or halfway empty can if you can, and keep it on your shelf so you can see what the name is. I've always been golden oak in this house, and that's the color we roll with. I've also done this panel, and the skylight has greatly diminished the finish on this. I should have videoed this before it was completed because it looked horrible. Now that's just the stain. After the stain dries, according to instructions, you are then ready to put on polyurethane. Can you say it with me? Polyurethane. But that's coming next. We're going to go back to the wood finish. It penetrates, stains, and seals. It actually helps seal, but the real sealant is this good stuff. So with the stain, totally different than polyurethane. And stain is first. Say it with me. Sand, stain, poly. That's it. That's all you have to do. Sand, and be sure to, after you sand, wipe it down with a slightly damp cloth. Sand, clean it up. Stain, and then poly. I've only been working on this project for about 22 minutes actually, and the only thing that's taken me too long is making this video. Anyway, you're going to pop this one open. Do shake this one. Do not have them shake this. In fact, if you ask them to do it, they'll look at you funny and say, "Do you want bubbles in there?" You don't want bubbles in the poly. The stain has to be shaken, not stirred. Well, actually both. Ask Bond. He'll say one or the other. James Bond. This is going to be the stain which is in this brush. Be careful where you drip because it's oil based probably, and it's going to really mark up. Of course, I'm not careful. I'm walking through the house with it. That's for the ease of speeding through this video so that I don't have you delay while I set up all the preps. We're also getting rid of this countertop, so I'm not worried about drips, but you are going to worry about drips. Look at how nice that looks. It doesn't go on like paint. It soaks in like tea. Think of it as being coffee or tea. This is a stain. It won't look uniform, and that's okay. In fact, we're gonna scoot back and get that. You want to get an old diaper cloth. Oh no, where did I put my diaper cloth? That's name that song. I don't remember the name of it. Okay, so you're gonna apply the coating. Be careful, it's very runny. It's not like paint. Say it with me, it is not. Stain is nothing like paint. It's all in the wrist. Don't get it to run. And I have very little on here just because I'm showing you just a sample. Don't flick it off the end. It'll splatter everything underneath, including your milk jug. And you don't want stain in your milk. It'll taste funny. Alright, so it'll look terrible at this point. Don't fret. Practice on just a blank piece of wood out in your garage if you want to, before you work on your house, or do an inconspicuous part of your house. Boy, I can't say that word every day on a video. Usually I stumble. Now I'm getting what's left in here because this is the last of my projects, and I want this to be emptied out. I am going to throw it away because it's just a cheap 49-cent applicator. It's just a little sponge. Then you want to take your cloth, which I walked right by it. Okay, this is your stain cloth. It's going to stain up your hands too, but the idea of this is to rub it in. Look at that, much better now. Now that ununiform look, if that's a word, non-uniform look, blends in. This is your blender, and the more this has in it, just make sure it's not dripping. But the more stain that is in this cloth, without being saturated, the better effect it'll have when you rub it into the wood. And there you have a prepped surface on both sides. The windowsill is truly a lost cause. I have stained with this stuff as much as I can. That window is due for replacement, but that's not in this year's budget, so we'll just have to live with my mistake from the past that I'm showing you so you don't make this mistake. Last step. Okay, this is the varnish, otherwise known as polyurethane. Varnish is polyurethane. You do want 2 or more coats, but you have to let it dry completely in between. And here's the part you won't like. You'll have to lightly sand it with your light grit paper in between coats, which is why you have to totally let it dry. So I'm going to put on the first coat today, let it dry according to instructions, which are conveniently located on the back in fine print. So you got to put on really funny looking glasses, probably, like if you're like me, and I still can't see it. Basically, I'm just going to put on just the first amount. Your area is prepped, right? Okay, get it on one side like this, so that, and the loaded side is up. You're going to start at the top. You're going to brush up and then back down to smooth it up, and you're just spreading it initially. And I'm going to dip it in, get one side to be, I wouldn't say dry, but you get the material off the brush on one side, go up, and I actually go up 3 times, and then I feather it out. They're called feathering it out. Don't get this on your paint, because next time you paint like regular paint, the paint will not adhere to the surface, and then you're going to have a funny looking part of the bathroom or whatever room you're doing. So up 3 times and then feather it out. Look at how that already takes on a sheen. It looks wet. It should look wet. Good, well varnished wood will look wet and shiny at all times. The shinier it is, the more protected it is against things like the sun and your hand washing, and when you spit coffee out because you're laughing at this video. Ha! Well, hopefully you do it when this stuff is dry. Then you can just slightly wipe it off. So let your wrist take on the form of the brush so that you're getting nice brush strokes. You definitely don't want to do anything, I'm going to do it wrong here, you don't want to dab like that. Look at how rough that surface looks. You want to get it nice and smooth, and that's why you bend your wrist and feather it out. Do the whole panel, even though you didn't stain up there. You will still do the whole panel, because otherwise it will have a non-uniform sheen to it. And don't flick your brush, because varnish that gets flicked onto the ceiling is there forever. Now I don't worry about this side. I'll come over and do that. What you don't want to have is runs. You don't want to have the runs. This is why you don't drink Mexican water or beer. Well, maybe it's worth it. I don't know. Maybe to you, but no, do not let, I'll show you a run. I don't know if you'll see it on the video. Look at those bubbles and runs. See that? Bad. And then you'll be sanding like crazy. I don't think of a simile or a metaphor for sanding, but you don't want to be sanding all day. You have better things to do, like planting a garden or watching my other videos. Be sure to subscribe, by the way. Alright, so I'm going to just continue doing this. Get angles, look at it from every angle when you're done with the entire panel. I've actually done most of this just while talking to you folks. When you get all done, I'm going to stop here because I don't want to mess up or get on the floor or hit that. You should tape that off unless you're really good at it like me. And then you spill on it and then you spend 15 minutes cleaning it out. It takes even longer. Look at that nice sheen. When it dries, you're going to take your, maybe your 20 grit. I'm not going to give you a number, but your very fine sandpaper, that what the label says, or if you're not sure, call the people that you bought the varnish from. They're eager to help you, and they're actually good at what they do if you go to a good store. And let it dry completely. You're going to sand lightly, and it's going to look dusty and horrible. That's okay, because good things come out of bad things, right? No, you have to sand the first time, because this will dry with an uneven, kind of a grainy surface. If you feel it, here's a dry surface. Let's say this is done. Actually, I did this earlier. It's going to feel kind of grainy and not smooth and shiny like this one. Well, that's the stuff that is actually from the byproduct of this drying a little bit uneven. On the first coat, it will dry uneven because some of it soaks in some places, some doesn't. And think of it as putting wax in grooves, and then if you want it to be smooth after it dries, you want to get it leveled off and smooth. Then when you put the second coat of polyurethane or varnish, same thing, on, well, they're not technically the same thing, but that would take a half hour to explain chemically. But anyway, polyurethane needs to be sanded, and then damp cloth, not wet, but damp, get all the dust off, and then varnish it or polyurethane a second time. You may want to do a third. I would say whatever the label says. I do two times. Third if it's really rough wood, but you know, this is oak here, and I won't need any more than two. So there you have it. Follow the label. Follow what your people at your store that you choose tell you. All right. Happy varnishing or polyurethaning. The cleanup, follow the label. I hate cleanup. I just throw, well, actually I don't throw this brush away. You can tell I've had that a long time. But that's why I use spongy things like that other sponge. So no poly in your cracks. You get it? When you're going down, the runs tend to go down. And notice I'm doing this part, but I'm going to open it and not let it dry touching that other surface, because when the poly dries, you'd be surprised how much strength it has. It's almost like a glue. Alright, if you have any questions, ask your hardware professional store people. Don't ask me, because I am not that smart. I just am a dude with cheap home tools. Some of it comes from garage sales. And good chemical, put it on, sand it, put it on again, and enjoy life. This project will only take about half hour to an hour, the first coat and the first application, and then let it dry tonight and hit it back one more time tomorrow, sand it lightly. The second coat will go on like a charm. Be careful, it'll run, because it's a really smooth surface and it's not going to soak in much. So put on less, but put it on thick enough that it does not run, but not too thick, because it will run. And I'm going to run. See you later! For staining and varnishing, a couple other really quick tips for you. Follow your instructions, but you need to sand with the grain of the wood. So if wood grain. You just look at it and see which way the grains run. This one runs this way. You want to sand with the grain of the wood. If you're lucky, stains and things will be on the outside of the old polyurethane finish and come off very easily. Sometimes it comes off so easily you don't even need to revarnish it. But sand only with the grain of wood, not against the grain of the wood, because then you'll flatten it out and it'll look terrible. And then you won't be able to say that I taught you how. The other thing is, you can take your brush, because you're going to do more polyurethane tomorrow. You're not going to do stain again, right? Because you've already put one coat of polyurethane. So you're going to need this brush again. Because of that, I would tell you to just put a Ziploc bag around the neck of that and put it in the freezer. And then you don't have to clean it twice. Nobody likes to clean twice. It's kind of like I do with my dishes. I cook on it, eggs and bacon and sausage, and then I leave the pan just sit there for a day. So there I have my poly brush, my polyurethane brush in a Ziploc. The two things that make this chemical dry are warmth and air. So let's take those away. Ziploc keeps the air out. And you could even tape the neck if you're worried about it. I have a really good Ziploc on here, so it's sealed. And cold air, which Minnesota always has, except for today. Now I'm paying for cold air in Minnesota. Put it right on top of the veggies, because you don't like veggies anyway, right? No, it won't hurt your food. It won't. And if you're worried about it, put it in another bag. Or put it in your neighbor's freezer. So with that, oh, and one last tip I meant to say. When you're painting your other surfaces, like glass and maybe vinyl if you're on the exterior, well, you're not going to varnish your outside. Definitely don't varnish outside. But if you have like vinyl siding and where the trim meets that vinyl, don't get it on any other material. Don't get it on glass. Don't get it on your wallboard, because once it dries, it is like fingernail polish, kind of. And it is very hard to get off, and it'll tear everything up. So back in college, I learned all this from an old German who was my boss. And he would always say, don't get your varnish on the vinyl, because the Germans, as you know, maybe you don't know, they do not say their V's, they say W instead. Which makes me wonder, why do they make the Volkswagen? We call it Volkswagen. But he says, don't get your varnish on the vinyl. And so you, when you're painting and varnishing and polyurethaning, don't get varnish on the vinyl. With that, I'm gonna go sign off and do something fun. Bye-bye. And now the finished product. That is fully sanded, cleaned, stained, and varnished.